So this is a presentation to get you to understand different factors that will come into play for financial aid. How do you get it, what it is. All of this stuff happens in your senior year. And so we want to give you an understanding of that, getting ready to go into senior year. So financial aid is money for college, in the way we speak about it. And that money will come in 4 different forms. It comes in something called grants, it comes in something called scholarships, loans, or work study. So they're color-coded and we're going to refer to them throughout the presentation. You can see it as kind of like a puzzle. They're part of a puzzle of what is financial aid. Financial aid is not just this, it's not just that, it's not just that, and it's not just that, it's all of this together, which is important to know. So when we speak about financial aid, that's what we're talking about. And then think about why you need financial aid. It has to do with college, right? And we have UC schools that cost money, Cal States that cost money. We have private colleges that cost money, community colleges that cost money. We have colleges outside of California that cost money. And we're going to take a look at how much money it costs and why you need financial aid. So community college is the least expensive of all colleges, with tuition and fees being about $1,200. Cal States are typically about $7,000. The University of California schools are typically about almost $14,000. Independent and private colleges can range between $20,000 to $50,000. It's a huge range because every school determines what their tuition and fees are. However, when you think about tuition, that's not the only cost in college. We're going to talk about what goes into the total cost of attendance. But if you're going to pay for college, you're going to realistically pay something in this amount for the total cost of attendance. And these are averages based on what each system posts online. So for community college, it's roughly about $15,000, give or take a couple of thousand. For Cal States, it's roughly about $25,000. For the University of California schools, it's roughly about $35,000. And for independent private colleges, it can range from $40,000 to $80,000. And when you're looking at these numbers, you should feel, like I feel, and like everybody else probably feels when they look at these numbers, like this guy. It should be pretty shocking. In order to get financial aid, you have to apply for it. You're going to apply your senior year to an application that's online, and it's called either the FAFSA or the DREAM Act. You don't do both applications. You'll do the FAFSA if you're a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or if you have a T visa. This is what the website looks like, just so you can become familiar with it. It's federal student aid. The DREAM Act, if you are not born here, if you're an undocumented student, a U visa holder, or if you have temporary protected status, a DACA holder, or you meet AB 540 requirements, then you will do the DREAM Act application. It's part of the state of California financial aid application. The website looks like this, and it's different. It's a very similar application process, but there are different applications. You do not do both. We'll let you know which one you do if you are confused about which one you do in your senior year, or which one you complete. And so if you want to go to college, and knowing how expensive it is, knowing that you can apply for college should make you feel like this, when you apply, you will be offered all of these things we talked about. You will not just be offered grants, you will not just be offered scholarships. You'll be offered, most likely, a combination of all of these things, which is important to know. And these we break down into 2 different types of aid. So grants and scholarships are in the category of gift aid. That's free money. Loans and work study is not free because loans you have to pay back, and work study you have to work for. That's called self-help aid. When we look at gift aid, we probably feel like this little guy. It's free. They're going to give you the money to go to college, so you feel happy about it. When we talk about loans in particular, but loans and work study, sometimes we feel like, I don't want loans. I don't want to take out any loans, and we feel like that. Well, you don't want to work. You just want to be in school. But think about those as potentially part of the package that could allow you to go to a school that you might not have been able to afford without these components. When you apply, the money comes from different sources, and I want you to know what those sources are. So for grants, they can come from the state of California, the federal government's Department of Education, or they can come from the colleges that you're planning to attend, or the college you're planning to attend. Scholarships, when you apply, can come from the college when you're applying for FAFSA. When you apply for the DREAM Act, unfortunately, you're not going to have access to federal aid. So stuff that comes from the federal government, you don't have access to, but you still have access to free money from the state of California, from the college, and scholarships from the college, which is a great thing. And work study and loans come from these sources. So the Department of Education provides work study funds. Colleges are now starting to provide work study funds. Loans come from the federal government, private banks, or from the colleges now that are offering institutional loans. When you apply for the DREAM Act, you will lose out on the Department of Education funds for work study and loans. However, many colleges, including UCs and private colleges, will offer, in some cases, work study and loans to undocumented students. Here's what financial aid will help you pay for. Tuition and mandatory fees, of course, but it also helps you pay for housing and food, which is where you're going to live, what you're going to eat, your books and supplies, transportation, personal and miscellaneous expenses. From the examples that we got, books, obviously part of it. Parking permits would be part of mandatory fees if you have to pay that fee to park there. Could you buy AirPods with financial aid? Yes, you could actually, because it's part of supplies. You could say you need it for, focusing during class or something, or for studying. You actually have the ability to use the funds to cover these expenses. Now the part in red is required. That fee you have to pay up front. The parts in blue, it depends. You have to make your decisions on how you're going to spend those. The parts in red, tuition and mandatory fees, you cannot change. You cannot go to school and say, I want to pay less for parking permits, or I want to pay less for tuition, because you have to pay whatever is listed. But there are ways to cut the costs of the parts in blue, which can lower the total cost. All of this stuff is called your cost of attendance. So if you have to buy a sandwich because it's lunch and you're a college student, it's part of your cost of attendance. When you have to take the bus or call a Lyft, I guess you don't call a Lyft, order a Lyft, that's part of the cost of attendance. It's important for you to understand, because sometimes students think, oh, I just have to pay this with my financial aid, but no, you actually have this covered as part of financial aid. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We won't spend too much time on these because it's a lot of numbers, but just to take a look at the Cal State LA cost of attendance if you're planning to live off campus. In LA, it's about $28,000, almost $30,000 now. So these have gone up. The tuition and mandatory fees, you cannot change that. What's in blue, these are estimates. You can raise or lower these estimates based on the decisions you make. At UCLA, you can see that the total cost of attendance to live on campus is $35,000. The tuition and mandatory fees at UCLA is this. And these other costs in blue are estimates for these items. At ELAC, where the tuition and fees are much lower, you still have these costs, which total a cost of attendance of roughly about $15,000 if you're living at home. At USC, the tuition is this here, which is ridiculously high, but that's the tuition, with a total cost of nearly $80,000. It's probably $80,000 by next year. And you feel like this, but keep in mind that when you apply, the total cost of attendance is what you're trying to get financial aid for, and when you apply for these applications, you're trying to get help to cover that cost. How much you're going to get will depend on several factors. So GPA is one of them, but it's not the only one. Definitely if you have a higher GPA, you're going to get more access to financial aid in grants, scholarships, and other considerations. But when you apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act, they're going to look at your parent income, they're going to look at household size, number of college students in the house, the age of your parents. Your GPA will be considered for some things, but not for everything. And there are other factors. They calculate that and compare that to the cost of attendance of the school you're planning to attend to decide how much you're going to be offered. And remember, you're not just going to be offered money to cover tuition and fees, you're going to be offered money to cover the whole cost of attendance. Which was all that. Alright, so when you apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act your senior year, you're going to get something called the EFC. And the EFC will also play a big role in how much money you're going to get. The EFC stands for Expected Family Contribution. When you apply, it's going to be good if you know what your EFC is right off the bat. Once you submit your application, it'll tell you what your EFC is. Most Roosevelt students get an EFC of 0, but it can range higher than that. And I'll show you why that will matter. So we're looking at cost of attendance of colleges, right? There's a financial aid equation that determines how much money you need to go to a school, if it costs $15,000, $25,000, $35,000, or even up to $80,000. And this is how it works. So they take a look at your cost of attendance of the school, subtract your EFC, and that equals your financial need. That's your hand, and that's how much the school will give you, or the school will offer you. Most students have an EFC of 0, so if the school costs $35,000, your financial need will probably be $35,000. So that's why this will be an important determination, because if this number is higher, your financial need is lower. But in our work with Roosevelt students, mostly it's 0. It could be up to about $1,000. The highest I have seen, though, is about $4,000 or $5,000 EFC. So what happens is that the school gets this information when you apply, and this is your hand because this is how much you need, and the school is like, okay, let me offer you that money in grants, scholarship, loans, and WorkStudy. And you'll receive what's called a financial aid award offer, and you determine at that point if you feel like that's enough to help you go to that school and make that determination. So our seniors just went through that process. They applied starting in October. They started getting their financial aid award offers around March and had to make decisions by April. So let me show you what we want to know is this free money, because this is what we want to get. if we have to get this, we'll get it. But this is what we want to get first. The state of California has a Cal Grant. That Cal Grant gives you up to this much money. So Cal Grant A for a UC, $12,500. For a Cal State, $5,700. And for a private college, $9,000, right? So getting Cal Grant A is great because it covers your entire tuition at a Cal State. Cal Grant B is also available. It's up to $1,000, $670. By the way, these are numbers for each year. So every year you would apply, you would get that same amount as long as everything stays consistent on the application. California also offers the College Promise, which pays your entire tuition at a community college when you apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act. The federal government offers Pell Grant, FSCOG Grant, FTSS Grant, Chafee Grant for foster youth when you apply for FAFSA. Unfortunately not for DREAM Act because this is federal money, so if you're applying for DREAM Act, that is not offered. And colleges, when you're applying, will offer you college grants and scholarships based on your application and financial aid. Based on your financial aid application and your college application. I want you to know about two grants in particular. These are the most important because they give you the most funding. And actually the Pell Grant is a little higher, so this one's a little outdated. It's gone up by a couple $100. You need to know about these because if you get these, you cover a lot of the financial need that you have by just these two grants. The Cal Grant A is the one you want. You need a 3.0 GPA to get the Cal Grant A. Most students who get the 3.0 financial aid GPA will get Cal Grant A automatically. It's an entitlement award from the state. It's not like you have to hope that you get picked right. You automatically get it by having a 3.0 GPA or higher. There is an income limit, but usually for Roosevelt students and their families, most families do not pass that income limit. So that's why we can say pretty much if you're going to have a 3.0, you're going to get Cal Grant A. So if you're going to go to UC, you'll get this much each year. Cal State, this much. Private, this much. When you fall under 3.0, you are still eligible for Cal Grant B, but you may lose thousands and thousands of dollars because you're under 3.0. You have to have above a 2.0 to get Cal Grant B, or to be considered for Cal Grant B. But just look at the difference. Like if you were going to a Cal State, you've lost $4,000 potentially, and at a UC, you've lost $11,000 potentially. At a private, about $7,400. I can't do the math right now. That's why it's really important that you try to have that 3.0 GPA to get Cal Grant A. Because on top of that, you could potentially also get the Pell Grant from the federal government if you're applying for FAFSA, which is up to just over $6,000 per year now. This one, you don't need a specific GPA. They're going to take a look at parent income mainly and other factors to determine your Pell Grant. Most students get the full Pell Grant when they apply. There are some students that get lower than this, but most Roosevelt students get the full Pell Grant.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
So a lot of our students have a 3.0 or above, and they're going to a Cal State. So oftentimes they get scared when they get Cal Grant B because they deserve Cal Grant A. However, if you stay in a Cal State for more than 1 year, they give you Cal Grant A plus Cal Grant B if you get good grades. So oftentimes they give you Cal Grant B for going to a Cal State just because it's going to benefit you more in the long run. So you get a little over 1,000 more in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's great if you get Cal Grant B.
Yeah, it's a great point that we've seen that you'll get this plus this if you're above the 3.0 at Cal State. Want to touch on student loans real quick. Definitely, student loans are not something you want to have too many of. If any, if you can avoid getting student loans, definitely avoid it because student loans you would have to pay back. However, they're part of the conversation about financial aid. And so before you completely say that you don't want loans, I want you to consider that it could potentially allow you to go to a more expensive college at that point when you're ready to decide. So just a quick overview of loans. There are federal loans that the federal government provides. The typical ones are the subsidized Stafford loans and unsubsidized Stafford loans. Subsidized is up to $3,500. Unsubsidized is actually up to $5,500, not $5,000. That's a typo. It's up to $5,500. Most of our students get offered both of these, but it depends whether you have to take them. It depends on the college, the cost, if you're going to dorm. All those things will depend when you're deciding in your senior year. You may also be offered a college loan, especially if you complete the DREAM Act. Colleges are now starting to offer loans to students that cannot get these. And you may also be offered parent loans or private loans to help fund it. We really don't recommend taking on parent loans, so as best you can, you want to avoid those. But I've seen some students take on those loans to attend a school that is far away that they want to dorm at. And then the last component of the puzzle is WorkStudy. WorkStudy, when you apply for the FAFSA, you can check a box that says you're interested in WorkStudy. The average award is about this much. However, I've seen WorkStudy offers of about $4,000. They're offered by the Federal Department of Education or by the college now. Colleges are starting to offer WorkStudy awards. You secure that job on campus or near campus. It's a great position to build relationships with other students or even staff members. They will accommodate your school schedule because they know you're a student, and those what you earn will help pay for your cost. So as an alternate to try to go work at Starbucks or work at a store while you're studying, you want to try to get a WorkStudy job. because typically they're more accommodating to your schedule. You'll probably work at a library or gym or computer lab or work as a tour guide or an usher. They're not very demanding jobs either. And then we're going to go back to the scholarship question. So you'll be considered for scholarships when you apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act by the school already, because they have their own internal school scholarships that they'll consider you for. However, there's also a lot of external scholarships that you would have to submit applications separately to. They're run by private businesses, organizations, colleges, high schools. For example, Roosevelt, we have the Roosevelt Legacy Scholarship. Just last week, we gave away over $50,000 to this year's senior class. We'll do the same next year for our seniors, and each year we get donations. We have an application, you apply, and you're considered for scholarships. Sometimes private individuals just start up their own scholarship program to give back to students. A lot of this you have to find on your own and research what you're eligible for, because of the thousands and thousands of scholarships. You might be eligible, but your friend is not, based on certain factors. Most of it is GPA, sometimes citizenship, sometimes your experience, what you've been involved in. So you find those scholarships, you submit applications to those organizations separately. Those organizations will decide on the recipient and then notify you. Sometimes that scholarship money goes directly to you as a student. You can decide what you want to do with it. Sometimes it goes to the school, and the school applies it to your financial aid. You don't want to ignore scholarships, because they are a great way to limit the amount of loans you would have to take if you do have to take on loans, because it's not the case for everybody. So if you get a $1,000 scholarship, that's less loan money you would have to take, which would be ideal for you. Most students ignore scholarship opportunities because there's so many. I think they get overwhelmed and they don't want to apply to every one of them. But when you do apply, you just give yourself that extra opportunity to get a scholarship here and there. At our College Corner, we typically, especially in the second semester of senior year, post up all the scholarship opportunities, and then our seniors are too busy on TikTok to apply. So every year we're like shaking our fists at them. Don't be that student. So to recap, money for college is all of these things. When you apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act, you're going to be considered for state grants, college scholarships. You'll be considered for loans too and WorkStudy, and the schools will receive your information and give you a package, which is your financial aid. When you are admitted, you have to be admitted to the college first, and then they'll send you this. And then you take all the information from each college you might be admitted to and decide if that's a package that's beneficial for you. Just to give you a timeline, the application opens up October 1st every year, and only seniors are going to apply October 1st because they're graduating and going to college. If you're in 9th, 10th, or 11th, you're really just waiting for senior year to apply. The deadline to be considered for Cal Grant is March 2nd. The final deadline is June 30th for other federal funds. However, the goal should be for every senior to get it done in that first semester if you can. If you can get it done in that first semester, you don't have to worry about carrying it over to the second semester. We hold various workshops at Roosevelt just to make sure students have the opportunity to apply. We hold parent workshops so that parents can be involved in the process. Because, let's talk about what information you will need. So for the class of 2021, upcoming senior class, you'll need this specific year. 2019 W-2 forms, 2019 tax returns, and any additional income documents that you might have from your parents. Now, we know how difficult it is for students to get this information from parents because a lot of parents don't really know why you're going to be asking for this, which is why we have parent workshops where they can come in and bring this information. But I would recommend anybody who's going into senior year already to start having these conversations with your parents about applying to college and applying for financial aid. This information is required if your parents file taxes. There are cases where your parents don't file taxes. You can still apply for financial aid. There's cases where they get paid cash and they get a W-2 but don't file taxes, so we can use the information from the W-2. Almost any situation that you might find that your parents are in, we should be able to have you apply for financial aid and figure out what documentation will be needed, either at the time you're applying or later on with the college. But typically, these are the forms you want to be able to access.
Can I add something to that?
Yes. Who are you?
Yvonne.
Oh, hi, Yvonne, you made it.
Hi, I jumped in like 15 minutes ago. I've just been lurking here.
Okay.
But if any of you incoming seniors have any older siblings who are in college already, there's a chance that they have the parents' FAFSA information and stuff like that. So it's really important that you're in communication with them, because suddenly you're trying to make an account for your mom for FAFSA and it says that her information's already linked with something, and then you're like, but who else has this information? And it's just a whole mess. So try to make sure that if you have any older siblings, you get all of that information from them just to make the process a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. I imagine some of these students might have older siblings that have already applied. Thank you, Yvonne. In addition to that income information, this is some of the personal information you might need. Parents' birth dates, parents' social number, if they do have a social security number. If they don't, we enter all zeros on the application. So it's not required that your parents have it's not required that you have a social security number. But if you have one, we'll need that. Your name as it appears on the social security card. If your parents are married, widowed, divorced, or separated, the date that they got married, widowed, divorced, or separated. And if your parents have email addresses, that'll be beneficial. This we will cover with you when you become a senior and you have to decide whose information you provide, because some of you don't live with both parents, some of you have parents that are not married. So we go through this chart, and there's a way to figure out which parent's information we'll use. If you don't live with a parent, and you live with a grandmother or an aunt, you still have to provide parental information in most cases. There are a lot of different scenarios that could happen with students, so it can be a case-by-case basis, so we'll help you figure out whose information is required. At this point, typically in our workshops, most people are confused. It's a lot of information, especially if you're coming in senior year, because now that this is the year when you're applying and you're getting it all. If you're not a senior yet, this is great, because now you're getting the exposure, right? And over time, a lot of this will become more and more familiar. Don't trip. Don't worry. The College Corner team will help you. We're going to have financial aid workshops available for U.S. students, specifically just students. Then we have Cash for College parent workshops where you can bring your parent and they can get the information as well. We do reminders. We track you. There's no way that throughout your senior year you won't know that you have to apply, because our team will definitely bug you and we'll say, hey, you haven't done the FAFSA, you haven't done the DREAM Act, come to our next workshop. Bring this information. So we've got your back on that. We'll have dedicated college peer counselors senior year. We don't know who they're going to be next year, but those students are trained on the process before everybody else, and they support during class and events. So once we find out who those college peer counselors are, you'll be able to just kind of reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not sure what to do on this part, and they should be able to answer you, or at least direct you to where to get the answer. And also, if you become one of these if you become a part of one of these programs, or are already a part of one of these programs, you're going to get additional support and additional opportunities to get help. It is more personalized when you're in one of these programs because they have smaller cohorts. So I would recommend, if you're not and you're interested in joining one of these programs, to reach out to us when we come back to school in August. We still don't know how we're going to come back to school, but eventually we will be back. Here are a few things to do to get ready for senior year. Get good grades, first of all, because a 3.0 financial aid GPA gets you way more money, way more opportunities, so you want to have that first. Talk to your parents about your college plans, because you don't want to spring it on them in senior year, like, oh, I need your income tax information, I need this, I need that, and they're going to be like, whoa, chill. You want them to be part of the plan. Talk to them about that information you'll need that I just went over. I'll put this video on our YouTube so you can go back and watch it. I can even post the slides on Schoology so you can just go back and refer to them if you didn't take notes. And then start looking for scholarships from now until you are done getting your college degree. There are scholarships from now until you are done with college. However, because there's so many, there's only a few that we're able to say, like, hey, Rough Rider seniors, apply to this one. But there's thousands out there, and you want to do your research and try to apply. And begin identifying the colleges you might apply to or will apply to your senior year. You want to start doing that now, because you don't want to go into senior year going, I don't know what college I want to apply to. You want to do that research going into senior year, whether that's Cal States, UCs, private colleges, because they all cost money and you'll need financial aid for all of them. All right, thank you, writers. I'm going to end the meeting. We will work with you next year in person, next school year. Take care, everybody. Bye.